plans.
But you need to prepare for and assume
Strongly warning Americans to avoid all non-essential travel to China.
that this is going to be a real serious problem.
France, Australia, Canada, the US, Singapore, Cambodia, Vietnam, the list goes on.
Health officials are investigating more than 100 possible cases in the U.S.
Germany, a man has contracted the virus.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
Japan, where a bus driver contracted the virus.
Coronavirus has killed more than 100 people there and infected more than 4,500.
We have to prepare for the worst, always, because if you don't and the worst happens.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to War Room Pandemic, live from Capitol Hill, Wednesday, the 22nd of April, year of our Lord 2020. John Fredericks Radio Network, FM 99.1, 103.9 in Chicago, in Chicagoland. Also in AmericasVoice.news, Dish Channel 219, the voice and the platform of the Trump Revolution. You can see all of Soup to Nuts, pregame and postgame on AVN every day on the new rallies, which is the president's press briefing, and his debates every day with the media. Newsmax TV later in the day, they do a great job of putting B-roll over this and producing it. Also throughout the world on G News, GTV in Mandarin, and throughout the world on Nexus.org. Everywhere, every place, every time. Now with over 100 million views and 6.3 million downloads. Okay, we're going to show you this 100 million. Yes, sir.
I do have a small breaking story.
None of your stuff's ever small.
The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs has responded to the Missouri lawsuit.
Already,
yes.
yo. They heard. Hey, they're listening. See, they're listening to War Room, and they realize we got to get up on this thing. This Missouri thing's going to be bigger than we think.
Geng Shuang, the spokesperson for the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, says the so-called lawsuit has absolutely no facts or lawful evidence. It's ridiculous. Since the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, now hold on to your seats, people, China has always maintained the attitude of being open, transparent, and responsible. These so-called allegations are malicious and overused, and they are against basic law.
Okay, hey, Chinese Foreign Ministry, it's called War Room Pandemic. We're waiting for your lawsuit. You're a stone-cold liar. You knew about human-to-human I'm even setting aside, which we're all going to find out because Wuhan lab's being hacked by everybody in the world, including the government of Vietnam that's not about to back down. Was Lutvak on it yesterday? He said, hey, watch Vietnam, baby. They're coming from, they beat them in 79, and they're coming for them now.
Beat them hard.
Beat them hard in 79. They sent the army down there. Boom. Vietnamese. Boom. They had two. So this is a lie. Here's why it's a lie. You knew it was human-to-human transmission and community spread no later than NLT, no later than the last week of December of 2019. I think we're going to prove in time you knew it a lot earlier because it's all going to come out. It's all going to come out. But right there, you lied to you misled the World Health Organization, the useful idiots there who Dr. Tedros and the team were not smart enough to drill down because they put out after consultation with you on the 12th, there was no human-to-human transmission. On the 14th, they tweeted it. No human-to-human transmission. At the same time, you're going around and you're preparing, at the same time you're signing the deal in Washington, D.C., you're preparing, as we know, to shut down Lunar New Year. You're not going to let everybody travel. That was a huge logistics operation, and you're going to specifically focus on Wuhan, on Hubei province and Wuhan. That's all in the mechanics of how you had to do it over the next day from the 15th after the World Health Organization put out your lie. Okay? What did you do? You shut down the country, but you let people, innocent Chinese, fly all over the world, 350,000 to the United States, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, back to Europe and throughout the rest of the world, spreading the disease innocently. This is not about the Chinese people. And at the same time, the CCP, and we know this we can monitor what you take through your customs. You went around and vacuumed up all the PPE in Europe, in the United States, and in Australia, knowing that the PPE was necessary not just for treating the disease with these heroes, these doctors and nurses, but that you can't test unless you have personal protective equipment. So, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, on your response to the thing, you're stone cold liars. And now, what's her name? We're going to slot for you at the Nuremberg trial. The Nuremberg trial that's going to take place in Wuhan. Okay, and the people, citizens of Wuhan, are going to stand in for us, for mankind, as your jury. You're going to be in the docket. We're writing your name down. You're in the docket. Okay?
Geng Shuang.
In the docket. You're a liar. You represent. All you do is, these are stone cold lies. It's not even close. This is a stone cold lie. I want to go back quickly. How are we going to open up? To fight back, we got to open up the country. No doubt about that. There's some breaking news here, Mr.
Yeah,
Jason
Secretary Mnuchin, Secretary of the Treasury, making the TV rounds this morning, a little bit to spike the football on the Senate, passing by voice vote. This, I believe it's now a $500 billion package, phase 3 here. He was first on, I believe it was CNBC, the issue Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, saying that a fourth package is in doubt, saying, hey, guys, we need to put the brakes on a little bit here. Secretary Mnuchin said that if there was to be a fourth package, sounds like they hadn't talked about this, it'd be on infrastructure, restaurants and sports, payroll tax. Didn't hear anything about energy sector or oil and gas, even though that's what Secretary Mnuchin we know is going to be helping to lead that committee there. I don't think this fourth package happens. We'll come back to that. But the bigger news, Secretary Mnuchin was just on Fox Business, and the headline coming out from Reuters on the recap, U.S. Treasury Chief looks for most, if not all, of the U.S. economy to be open later in the summer. So Mnuchin saying that by later in the summer, everything that's been shut down should be back open. That's kind of the goal. So we will see here, and of course, then as we start looking to the fall.
Well, to do that, to get there, we got to start somewhere. You got to start. So walk me through. You guys have had some personal experiences. I'm going to get back to Jack about how you actually, with the difference of what business is going to be, is it even logical that we can do this? But you guys are seeing it right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, in the very first block of the show here, when I stepped out momentarily, it was to do a quick telemedicine appointment for my broken toe, which I stubbed on the door, and it's definitely broken. So the doctor called up and did a little online thing. He had his assistant, and from her location in a box there, I tilted my computer down to my busted toe, took a look at it, and it was like, yeah, you come in for an x-ray, tape it up for a week.
The president's been very high on that. So actually, the telemedicine's working.
Yeah, it was great. You click a link, say that you waive the HIPAA thing. So
but for the retail stores, for the food stores, the bulk of the economy, all these little restaurants,
it's
cafes,
all changing. It's all changing. I mean, yesterday I went to, we were joking about this in the break, but went to pick up a salad from Sweet Green, and yes, the buried lead. I had a salad yesterday. It was still funny in the break. It's still funny now. But I walked up to the door, and he's like, "Are you here for a pickup?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm going to get a salad." And he goes, "No." He's like, he kind of puts his hands out and says, "Go back out, download the app, order it online, and then just come and pick it up from the table where we leave it for you."
There's a great new bagel place on Capitol Hill that I've become very fond of, and I go there last week, and I walk up to the door, and there's the table in the doorway. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. They're going to take my order here. The lady comes up to me at the thing. She says, "No, you have to call us." What do you mean I have to call you? I'm right here. I'm in front of you. Take my order. Go, I want a bagel. She goes, "You have to call." So I call the number. She walks 2 meters behind her, picks up the phone. "What can I get you?" Right? I don't understand it.
Jack, is that logical? What we've got to do for these small businesses? Can you afford to have the Vish type bouncer at the front taking your temperature? Can you do it? Restaurants, I think, are 7% pre-tax margin business, right? It's thin margins, even the best restaurants. Is this logical? We can do only 1/3 of the tables. The table turns are less. You've got all this different stuff. Can we actually logistically open?
I don't think any restaurant could survive with that. I mean, you have a bar with 30 seats and you're only going to have 5 guys sitting there. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to even open it up or even have the employees there because you're never going to meet your margins. I think really what is necessary more than anything is, number one, that we confront the facts, that we understand what the mortalities are, we understand who's most at risk. I think these things should have been clear from day one. And then I think we need more than anything, we need political leadership with courage that is not leading by consensus, but is leading at the front by taking decisions and taking responsibility for those decisions so that the country can follow your lead, have some courage, and begin to move forward. At some point, we have to dust off, bury our dead, and continue on our path because it looks like this disease is with the human population to stay. So we have to adapt to it and be able to function. I describe it like the Philippines has been fighting an insurgency with Muslim terrorists in Mindanao for 100 years. They haven't shut down the country. They just deal with it. They deal with this disease inside their system.
Well, the Mindanao terrorists, I'm very familiar with spending so many years over in the Philippines. They're not in Manila. That's the difference. You can't go in a cafe in Manila and get the Muslim terrorists.
You can't catch it via a sneeze.
Yeah, you can't.
But every now and then, just like terrorists do, they strike.
So besides sequestering somehow the aged, the comorbidities, all that, is that what you're saying? That everybody else, in other words, we're going to have to come to a point, if you want to open up the whole economy, like the Secretary of Trade is saying, we're going to have to hit an inflection point to say, hey, look, you can do the testings, you can flood the zone or we can't flood the zone anymore with our therapeutics since NIH, Dr. Fauci just told us they don't work.
I'd be happy to go through all that stuff, but I do think one of the things that we have to have faith in is Western medicine, and we have to constantly remind ourselves that a Western doctor has not even seen this disease for more than 8 weeks. So I think that the therapeutics are going to come further and further on. There's a wonderful study that came out of Europe yesterday on this drug called Ruconest, and it attacks in a different way. It deals with the immune response rather than as an antiviral trying to attack the disease itself. I think that we are going to adapt. I think that one of the things that's frightening, I looked at the CDC website today about the COVID-19 deaths. Now, it's about a week behind, but they listed, so when they had it at 19,000, they had influenza deaths at 7,000.
Nobody dies from influenza.
I know, but I'm just saying. Start to look at the way they're defining the metrics.
Nobody dies. Nobody. So any viewer out there, hashtag Worm Panda. I had a guy last night, one of the most prominent guys around, called me. I said, okay, you're 65 years old. You're one of the most doubting guys I've ever met. I said, I want you to tell me right now, name me how many people you know died of influenza. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, just name them. He thought about it, goes, I've never known anybody die from influenza. But in the next segment, we got to get on, we talk about Western medicine. You got to play the World Health Organization clip from CNN yesterday. Where the
YouTube.
The YouTube.
That's exactly what I was just thinking.
But I want to get to that so we can tee it up. We talk about Western medicine. Jack, back here. Are you saying, because listen, if we can't, we're going to start an experiment this week in both Georgia, Texas, with Mike DeWine, other states, in the laboratories of democracy to start to open this thing up. We got to have, in any effort, any initiative, anything you do, it's what Robert Bartley at the Wall Street Journal used to call muzzle velocity. You need to start with, because the world's always 5-4 against, right? You need to start. If you know the thing of the power of 3 and the power of 7, you need to start with real motive power. You need to start with a hard push. What my fear is, I see a bunch of fits and starts. The media's all over Georgia. Governor Abbott's going to come out. You're not going to be able to unlock this economy unless you, boom, you hit it and say, here's what we're doing. Mark Cuban said, hey, lay out the things, and we go. The question is, how do you do that where we currently stand? And particularly, I want to talk about your NIH. Our whole thing was mass on point. You had to have flood the zone with therapeutics, flood the zone with mass testing to the degree, surveillance testing, flood the zone with antibodies testing. The reality is none of that's going to happen. There's no mass on point here. Our whole theory, we were close it hard, open it hard. And this is you really crash the curve, not lower it, because we don't want the deaths. And I'm saying right now, nobody's talking about it. We're going to have 60,000 deaths before April 30th. The entire model that Ambassador Dr. Colonel Birx talks about is 60,000 deaths for the entire first wave. There's just a discount, and I'm saying every night I'm talking to you guys, hey guys, these deaths, and somebody just texted, they don't know, Antietam was the bloodiest single day of the Civil War. Until 9/11, the bloodiest day in American history was the battle right up the road here when General Lee tried to hook around Washington and take D.C. General McClellan, they had a massive one-day gunfight, okay? I think 2,700 dead. Bloodiest day in American history until 9/11. I think bloodier than any day in any day in World War II, bloodier than Normandy. And Normandy might be a false count because I think 10,000 died. But I digress. However, we're having Antietam every day, right? We're having Antietam every day for the last 10 days. We've doubled. We've had exponential growth. We've
doubled in a week.
We doubled in a week. Hello. That's not 60,000 dead on this first wave. There's a disconnect. Here's my point. We're disconnected from reality right now. We got to get reconnected. Short commercial break. Be back with the team and Jack Maxey's answer in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back to episode 133 with 100 million views and 6.3 million downloads. It's War Room Pandemic live from Capitol Hill. The great thing about the show, it gives us a break between me yelling at Vish, the production team. Now we're back and we're happy.
By the way, there's breaks for the audience. There's no breaks for us in the War Room.
No.
This is Steve Bannon turned down for what?
There shall be no fighting in the War Room. Okay, I want to go back to Jack. Jack, okay, no offense. I know you're the audience favorite. All the liberate crowd. By the way, for the libertarians out there that light us up all the time, here's what I want. I want you to send us at hashtag War Room Pandemic because, look, I love the libertarians. We're all part of the coalition. I got it. But I want to hear your solutions. I keep hearing your snark. Oh, you guys, big government. Please give me a solution. The Ubermenches. I want the Ubermenches to give. Oh, just walk through here, etc. I just want this to give us hashtag War Room Pandemic. I'm calling you out. Give us the solutions. Now, Jack, not to pick on you, but Dr. Fauci, payback on Jack Maxey. For Jack Maxey talking trash on Dr. Fauci dropped a bomb on Jack yesterday. Hydroxychloroquine and zinc. It's a loser. Well, stone cold loser.
Well, listen,
I've already called our lawyer. No, we already said you got to talk to your doctor first. We're not selling any newsletters. We're not selling any pills in the back. What happened yesterday?
Well, listen, the NIH put together a committee, and it's for guidelines for treatment of COVID-19. Like everything else that comes out of Fauci, there were very few specifics. Now, they don't actually mention hydroxychloroquine or the alternative therapies by name, but they make it very clear that these experts believe there is no treatment for the disease. However, they will support proper trials, etc.
And I'm not trying to be funny here, but in yesterday, and this is about a government speaking with one voice, I'm not a deep state guy. There is no deep state. It's in your grill. But there are also no coincidences. There's no coincidences. Yesterday, CDC gives us, oh, by the way, the second wave is going to be much worse than the first. And NIH comes out with a study that says, hey, your mass on point, take the therapeutics off because there are no therapeutics. What's going on?
Well, I can tell you what's going on. It's moving the goalpost because they want to go in because that removes any of the accountability. It's the constant swirl. I mean, even going back to my good friends at IHME, Dr. Chris Murray and
the
University.
Night tweeters.
They go through. It's look, and again, I follow their Twitter feed, so you guys don't have to. But they went through and they literally just came out with their revised studies of when they can open things up. We talked about they changed the goalpost to now where it's 1 infection per million, not 0.3 deaths per million, because this is then what the strain is going to be on the hospitals. But they've gone through and basically said, here is what the timetables are going to be for each state. And they literally just came out of this thing, like the first one I want to say was the 17th. They just came through and updated this then on the 21st. But for example, Alabama, they only shifted by a day. But Arizona, and this is just from April 17th until yesterday, Arizona shifted by 15 days. They now think it's going to be 15 days later. Look, everybody right now in the permanent administrative scientific medical state community. I know you don't want to say deep state, so I'm going to say administrative bureaucratic state.
The administrative state.
But look, this is the whole thing. This is a whole bunch of word salad, gobbledygook of moving the goalpost. Because if we're talking about, well, hey, the next wave, you're really going to get kicked in the head. This then takes away all the testing and everything. It's like an accountability dodge from the medical scientific state.
I've used this strategy before in politics. It's the say everything strategy, so that you can point back and say, no, actually, I did say that. Well, you said a bunch of things that were contradictory to that, but I also said that, so I was right at some point in the whole thing. Now, I want to add this to what you just said. Also, look at what's happened in terms of the interview that we had in the Washington Post with the CDC director, and also look at how much in the middle of the day yesterday you had Anderson Cooper and all the CNN health people going, there's this study about hydroxychloroquine.
They were saying hydroxychloroquine.
Right? That's what they were saying.
100%.
This is the UVA VA study. I can go through that.
And I hope you do. But remember, I just want to point this out. A couple of weeks ago, it was CNN who was saying, how dare the president say something that isn't peer-reviewed? And the study they talk about all day yesterday on CNN, not peer-reviewed.
Go through that study.
Is that fake news?
Well, here, I have a little funny...
Not peer-reviewed news.
Very funny anecdote I posted on my Twitter a couple days ago. Apparently, Fauci spoke to the graduates of Yale University Medical School, and the headline of his speech is, "Follow your gut."
I know, but this is once again, you guys are making a huge mistake. This is all the own the libs crowd. You pull a thing, it's supposed to be evidence-based, says follow your gut. We ought to make him to stand up and be more. We want him to be more scientific. You're saying his NIH study is no good. He never mentioned it. Let's talk about the UVA VA.
Okay, I'm ready to go through that.
Jump in here.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No.
Super quick point. Here is why when I jump on the deep state, for lack of a better term, here is why, because our public policy deciders, so the president, the governors of these states, they need to be relying on the best medical advice. Take that in, take a look at the business advice. Here's how we get America back to what we were and how we're going to go and be the best again. That's what they're trying to do. But if they keep getting this information that's shifting and all over the place, that makes it very hard for governors and our president to go and make those decisions.
So that the audience, let's just connect the dots again, reset. The Secretary of Treasury comes out today and says we're going to be fully open as an economy by summer. Okay, that's the kind of optimistic, hey, that gives us the target, right? We're going to do that. At the same time, you have the scientists are sitting here, CDC saying the second wave, which is coming in the fall, is going to be worse than the first wave. So we're going to open up the economy then just to be hit with the second wave. And NIH is telling you, the concept they have is called mass on point. Mass on point has three aspects to it. Mass therapeutics, right? Because we said no vaccine around. Mass surveillance testing with contact tracing and then quarantining of those, right? The other aspect of that is the sequestering of the high morbidity crowd, the elderly, minorities, or whatever that have high morbidity. And the last is antibody testing. Now, we know right now for the mass on point thing, it's already on shaky ground because every aspect, and NIH, it seems to me, is every day dropping either in UVA or other places. Other reports are saying there's no therapeutics, even the Gilead thing. But go to the UVA VA study because that's what we were talking about yesterday. Why is that not? That proves your hydroxychloroquine zinc combo doesn't work.
Azithromycin, I'm not a big fan of the zinc, but here is what I think of the study.
Vaccine.
Now, I talked to my...
I never heard that before. That's a whole new, but keep going.
I talked to my muse, Dr. Hatfield, yesterday. We went over the study. Now, one thing you have to remember is this is a retrospective study. One of the guys who led it was that doctor from UVA who came out on like day one and said, everyone's going to die of a heart attack if they use this. So somehow he comes up with this study supported by NIH, the UVA, University of South Carolina, and the VA system, okay? Now, they go back retrospectively and they look at over 300 patients who were treated in the VA system who at one time during their treatment got either hydroxychloroquine, and azithromycin, or got nothing, and they compared the outcomes, okay? Now, when you go and look back through this, it was not a homogeneous patient population. This is Hatfield's words. Severe and early cases are lumped together, not peer-reviewed. They need to categorize this paper mild, moderate, severe, and time after diagnosis that the HCQ was started. Also, where did they get the drug? I see the patient population is all over 60. And the 33% had lung damage when they arrived, and 22% had pre-existing lung damage to begin with.
Are you whining? Are you whining?
I'm not whining.
It sounds like a study.
I'm not whining. It's just you're looking back, and even if you go to the study, I recommend go to page 12 and page 13, and they give almost more verbiage about how their study might not be a good study.
And how is and because of those attributes to it?
Because of bias, because there's no control concerning when the people got it, how sick they were, et cetera.
I want to go to talking about bias. I want to go to this World Health Organization situation. Do we have this?
We have the clip of the YouTube CEO on with Brian Stelter from CNN. Jason.
Talk about that as raising authoritative information. But then we also talk about removing information that is problematic. Of course, anything that is medically unsubstantiated. So people saying like, take vitamin C, take turmeric, like those are all will cure you. Those are the examples of things that would be a violation of our policy. Anything that would go against World Health Organization recommendations would be a violation of our policy. And so remove is another really important part.
She went through that very quickly at the end there, right? Anything that goes against World Health Organization policy will be removed from YouTube.
Should we play that one more time because it went through so quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
And again, this is Susan Wojcicki, I think of the YouTube CEO.
Talk about that as raising authoritative information. But then we also talk about removing information that is problematic. Of course, anything that is medically unsubstantiated. So people saying like, take vitamin C, take turmeric, like those are all will cure you. Those are the examples of things that would be a violation of our policy. Anything that would go against World Health Organization recommendations would be a violation of our policy. And
that was it right there.
That was it right there. Now let's consider the fact that the World Health Organization has previously added traditional Chinese medicine to its list of official things. Let's also not forget that the World Health Organization has been telling us for some time now, we don't actually make the direct recommendations. This is, we just do assessments and governments make their own decisions. And then also, I mean, this is the YouTube CEO who's presided over an insane level of censorship already over the last couple of years that she's been in that post.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, you look at who is removed from YouTube and what type of content is removed from YouTube. We've had it ourselves here in the War Room, some of our episodes going down and algorithms taking us down because we played a clip that they didn't like and all of this thing. And there's very little accountability. You can never get on the phone with somebody and solve an issue like that. She's presiding over all of that. And let's not forget the World Health Organization had Robert Mugabe, murderous tyrant, as its goodwill ambassador just a couple of years ago. This is who I'm supposed to believe for information, and where YouTube, the single largest place.
You can't make it up. We're going to show a minute with the world famine with Jack Maxey.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Distributed everywhere in every platform, on cable TV, on streaming services, on AM radio, FM radio throughout the nation. Also subtitled later in Mandarin TV, blowing through the firewall through the VPN, so the Radio Free China. It's an article a day in Politico. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I didn't have time to do that. Where I'm lighting up Amanda Bennett and the useful idiots over at Voice of America. We'll get to that tomorrow. With over 100 million views and 6.3 million podcast downloads. It's War Room Pandemic, or as we're now calling it, War Room Pandemic starring Jack Maxey with Steve Bannon and others. Right? That is Steal Your Girl, Jack Maxey. We're by the way, so hashtag War Room Pandemic had a great recommendation. We want to get Congressman Paul on, right? The father of Ron Paul, the man, the libertarian. We got to get him on, have his thoughts on this. I know he's not particularly happy with what's going on. And I got to tell you, McConnell said it. He says, hey, I don't know if it's going to be a fourth package. We got to take a deep breath here. I've been saying the president's idea of $2 trillion infrastructure, I don't think that's going to fly right now. It's just they're going to try to make it the Green New Deal. I just don't think there's going to be support there, right? Understand, and I love what he's talking about, rural broadband and other aspects. We've talked to industry guys who are saying, hey, you need all this infrastructure for the environmental cleanup or environmental stuff for the oil and gas industry. We're going to have Amir Adnani on, the CEO and founder of the Uranium Energy Corporation, about the mining, where we still can potentially dominate here after we get Jack jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, look, if we come back with this, when Secretary Mnuchin was talking about this infrastructure, I know there's the traditional, builds, the bridges, roads, everything you're going to be building here, but let's think smartly about how our economy is going to be different.
Fourth industrial revolution.
So look, quit screwing around with 5G. I'm saying this is a nation overall. Let's just go and get the damn 110,000 towers built. Get those things rocking. No, you're not going to get brain cancer from 5G signals.
Oh my God!
Don't.
The anti-vax crowd is going to be all over. His name's Jason Miller.
Yeah, no. Is that like Joaquin Phoenix? Is that or
Robert Kennedy? The whole thing. They're all going to be all over you. Because the anti-vax crowd is now the 5G is in your brain crowd.
Let's do the things necessary.
We're going to have the anti-vax guys on too. I want to hear them make their. We're going to get Kennedy on here. Have him make his case about Bill Gates.
Man, he's crazy.
I know he's crazy, but I don't mind having a few crazies on here.
Okay. Well, you can't be crazier than us.
According to Jack Maxey and his posse. That's Jack. I want to go to listen. We do try to have some levity during the day. We're not here to entertain you, but we've got really great camaraderie here. Although in a day after 4,700 Americans died, this is the most horrific mass casualty event in American history. Okay, and now we're talking about triggering, and we keep saying we've been talking about this a long time. The MBS gangster hit on the American energy oil industry is going to cause massive deflation. It's one of the reasons I want to have Amir Adnani on in a minute, talk about nuclear power in the nuclear mining industry, right? That could be a savior, at least a part of it, since the Chinese are all over nuclear power. We got to get wise on this. Let's talk about, Jack, to make our viewers feel better at home today as they're locked up and not going out on a beautiful spring day, the worldwide famine. This is the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And people are saying this is biblical. Hey, I'm not an end of times crowd right now, but you look at just the facts. Now you're talking about and this is The Guardian, which is a left-wing secular paper. They're saying a famine of biblical proportions is upon us.
Well, actually, it's not just The Guardian. They're quoting a fellow named David Beasley, who's the executive director of the World Food Program in the UN. He had just spoken to the National Security Council there, or the UN Security Council on Tuesday. And he says, we are not talking about people going to bed hungry. We are talking about extreme conditions, emergency status, people literally marching to the brink of starvation. If we don't get food to people, people will die. Now, long-term listeners will know that I think I brought this up about the 10th episode, that famine is a historical imperative on the backside of a pandemic. And now one thing I would love to do, I hope to get a shout out to President Trump and Jair Bolsonaro, because the communist Chinese running around trying to save the world with PPEs and bad tests and whatever else, no matter what, they cannot feed the world. Only the free world can feed the world. Now, one of the things that he said... I
want to connect the dots. Brazil and the United States are the OPEC of food. The combo of the United States and Brazil are what? It's 70% of the world's... This is why the Chinese are all over Brazil.
We are the OPEC of food. And at the end of the day, it's going to be much more important for the globe. We already had last year 100 million people who were in states of starvation. Okay, this year they think that could double. There are 30 countries within the developing world that will be in a starvation status, they believe, by the middle of the summer. Now, on top of this, which is really frightening too, we've got a massive locust swarm that is all the way up to the Pakistani
I knew you were going to go there.
Indian border. They already said prior to the pandemic that could put 22 million people in that region in a state of starvation. So one thing I think we can be very proud of in the West here in America, and particularly the heartland, is that you guys are going to go out there and you're going to save lives with corn, soybean, and grain.
Yeah, I hear you. And we're talking about food security. The president just got $18 billion from Secretary Sonny Perdue about food security. But Stiglitz, and I realize he's a left-wing economist, but he has won the Nobel Prize. Mm-hmm. He's talking now about what? He's saying we're becoming quickly a third world country. Is that not correct?
Yeah, so Nobel Prize winning economist, which I'm not sure there is much gravity in that anymore. But Joseph Stiglitz, who has been the guiding star for a lot of the economic types in the World Bank and so on, he said, and quote, "The numbers turning to food banks are just enormous and beyond the capacity of them to supply. It is like a third world country. The public social safety net is not working." He's referring specifically to the United States. And that's a new interview with The Guardian this morning.
Jack, on the food security part, I want tomorrow if you can give us an updated report of what Purdue says, because this talks about, this incorporated the problem we've had in the breakout in the beef plants, in Iowa beef, out in Iowa, also in, was it Minnesota or South Dakota, the problem with Smithfield, now owned by the Chinese Communist Party.
Well,
from the Commonwealth of Virginia to the Chinese Communist Party, it goes, the breakouts there. Do we actually have food security? Are we going to be able to be the OPEC, us and Brazil, to actually produce for the world?
I think we should be the OPEC, and I think it would be a great way to create a wonderful future alliance between ourselves and Brazil, and I also would love it to be a step forward in refocusing our foreign policy on Latin America.
Fine, but this is why I want to bring in now. We're going to bring in Amir Adnani, the founder, CEO, president of Uranium Energy Corp. You said should be. That should be. We should be a lot of things. We should be the world's dominant power, full spectrum energy power in oil and gas. We just got taken out by MBS, the Saudis and the Russians, okay, for the Chinese. Boom. We should be the OPEC of food. Are we or are we not? We'll find out that tomorrow. We should be the world's dominant player in, at least in nuclear power, because we've got more uranium here than anybody else, and yet we're not. We import all the uranium from overseas. So, Amir, we've had you on the show a couple of months ago. Give us the latest status, because I'm hearing that through your good work and others, that there's a huge report that may come out from DOD tomorrow, or Commerce tomorrow, that may actually lay this out. What is going on? Why are there not 40,000 high-paying mining jobs in this country of our miners back there mining uranium for a robust nuclear energy industry here in the United States, since our rival in China is all over nuclear power?
Steve, just like the Saudi and Russians attacked America's shale sector and energy dominance there, the same thing has happened in uranium from Russia and Kazakhstan. And this has been going on for a long time, longer than it's been going on in the energy sector. But President Trump recognized this. In fact, he's done something about it, a presidential memo where he recognized the national security threat. The uranium is required for 20% of U.S. electricity supply and multiple vital defense needs. You're talking about 108 reactors in 84 aircraft carriers and submarines. And we're producing none domestically, no uranium mining domestically, importing everything. Yet when you look back in the 1980s, the U.S. led the world in uranium mining. And we have abundant supplies of uranium, geologic potential. Mother Nature, just like the Shale Revolution, was able to create this dominance, which now, again, Russia and Saudi want to attack. If we want to have full spectrum energy, we need to have, for the full spectrum energy dominance, must include nuclear power. And nuclear power is a geopolitical tool right now for Russia and China to gain influence all over the emerging countries and the emerging world. And the U.S. has completely fallen behind in this. Yet again, we're the largest consumer of uranium in the world. 98 reactors generating 20% of electricity. The U.S. consumes more uranium than any other country, more than China and India combined. So as much as people may look at this as an emerging market story where demand is there to meet the need of hundreds of millions of people that are joining their middle classes, right here we're looking at base load electricity that nuclear power provides. Yet again, you've got zero domestic capabilities, and something has to be done, and something really needs to be done decisively to put this industry back to the level of dominance it used to be at in the 80s.
No, you got to stop. We've got about 2 minutes left, but help me out. The backbone of the fleet is the nuclear fast attack submarines, the nuclear ballistic missile submarines, the nuclear powered aircraft carriers, the nuclear powered combatants. Please don't tell me that 100% of what we're getting to fuel our nuclear navy, forget the even commercial stuff, which is bad enough. Please don't tell me that what's there to the backbone of the fleet, the same fleet that can shoot every ship out of the water coming out of the Straits of Hormuz or through the Straits of Malacca or in the South China Sea, the ones that are going to save us. Please don't tell me we're getting that uranium from Russia.
Everything is being imported. We can't even rely on allies like Canada and Australia. Their industries are just as impacted as those in the U.S. There's no production currently in Canada, but more importantly, defense needs must be met from domestic sources, U.S. origin uranium. This is according to international agreements, the nuclear non-proliferation agreements, all part of the international community of the IAEA. So you need U.S. origin uranium to meet those needs. This has been going on for decades. But again, you look at the fact, companies like ours, Uranium Energy Corp, with potential in places like Texas, Wyoming, potential that even the U.S. Geological Survey has come out and said there's the biggest untapped potential in the world is in places like South Texas. We want to be the leaders, not only in taking U.S. production of uranium back up again, but actually on a global basis, be a low-cost source of uranium. We can be competitive globally. And that's where this is so frustrating, I think, for a lot of us in our industry, is that we see this global potential in the U.S., skills, expertise, et cetera. Again, remember, in the 1980s, the U.S. led the world. Low-cost methods of uranium were invented in the U.S. that are not being used in Kazakhstan. Why can't that be done here? And now the Kazakhs have announced COVID-19 disruptions, and they can't mine as much uranium. The supply disruptions, 100% of which were dependent on Russia and these other foreign sources, they're now being cut back. 60% of global production has been impacted in the last 30 days because of this virus. And we're not producing any domestically. And now you see what happens when you get those global supply chain disruptions. But this is uranium, a vital energy commodity and vital to defense needs.
Amir, we're going to ask you to stay over for the next segment. We're going to get both you and Mike Walsh in. We're going to take a short commercial break. This is another thing. My head blows up. We're a superpower in food. We're a superpower in natural gas. Pennsylvania is the Saudi Arabia of natural gas up in the Marcellus Shale. We're a superpower in uranium, and we're holding back. This has got to be buy American, hire American. If this crisis to show us anything is, and I don't want to hear it's just the globalists. Now it's your responsibility. I want you to embrace this at home, particularly you libertarians. We're going to return on the Economic Nationalism channel, War Room Pandemic, with the team and Amir Adnani in a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we got breaking news. Raheem, and then Jack, I want you to ask Amir the question as soon as we finish breaking news. What do we got here?
So Reuters is flashing just the following. I'm going to quote it all for you. Pompeo says China still has not shared virus samples from inside China with the outside world. That's all we know at the moment, although some have commented already that this is in contravention with WHO rules that stated that I think they had to be shared within 48 hours.
Where is CNN on this? Where's MSNBC on this? Even where's Fox on this? Where's the mainstream media on this? This is everything. You're not going to get a vaccine. You're not going to get anything until that's done. This is unset, and you allow their propaganda worldwide. It's unacceptable. If you're at home right now with no job and no future and no pension plan, and you can't go out on a beautiful spring day, this is the problem. This is the problem. They're at war with us. Any decent human being, any decent group of political leaders would have done that. 48 hours wouldn't have been instantaneously. They're bad guys, and they're coming for you. Like General Spaulding said on Stealth War, it's an all-out war. Jack, you got a great question for Amir.
Amir, I was wondering, let's say that Kazakhstan shut down all the supply of uranium. How many years of supply do we have in our strategic supply to support both our military needs and our civilian and electrical needs?
Jack, for too long, ever since the end of the Cold War, the U.S. was not only relying on dismantled Soviet-era warheads, and those same warheads that were pointing at the U.S., pointing at us during the Cold War, were dismantled from the early 90s until 2013, and we were focused on just getting uranium out of that, taking it from highly enriched to low enriched. And the Department of Energy was also selling from stockpiles of uranium that the government had up until this administration came in. This administration, this DOE, Secretary Briette, before him Secretary Perry, changed that. And now, for the first time, the Department of Energy isn't selling stockpiles of uranium from the strategic reserve. But President Trump has proposed in President's 2021 fiscal budget, there is a proposal to purchase, for the first time since the 1970s, purchase $150 million of uranium annually. But Jack, that proposal was made in light of all these issues. The president clearly was briefed by the Nuclear Fuel Working Group, recognizing that the Pentagon, the Department of Energy, all these government agencies and departments are pointing to one thing, which is there's a shortage, there's not ample or sufficient government stockpiles, and we need to start to build stockpiles again. This $150 million proposed purchase program hasn't been ratified or implemented yet. We're urging the administration and people responsible for this, the White House, to come out and get behind this, because we've lost too much time. This was supposed to have taken place last year, and now with the virus and with everything else going on in terms of disruption, we've fallen behind even more. We've fallen behind that much more, and now, Jack, even if tomorrow you have a high uranium price, you can't get the supplies out.
We got to bounce. How do people get? Do you have a Twitter feed? How do people get more understanding of this issue? Because it's going to be a big one.
They can follow us on first of all, at www.uraniumenergy.com. I'm on Twitter at Amir Adnani, or our company at Uranium Energy. Also, we're a public company on the NYSE. You can take a look at us. Look, Steve, we have the largest base of fully permitted uranium projects of any company in the U.S. We want to be the leader in this. We can create jobs. We can put people back to work, and we can create that full spectrum energy dominance. This is so important. And again, uraniumenergy.com, lots of information about everything we're doing.
Okay, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Amir Adnani, we're going to post this up today. Appreciate it. Can we try to get Mike Walsh? Mike Walsh is in Ireland. Mike Walsh wrote just to make sure that all the listeners, because we do have some Democrat listeners and some moderates, make sure all the listeners leave today with particularly the guys on the right, our posse, the deplorables. We got Mike Walsh, who's joining us now from Ireland. Mike, you had a column in the New York Post on Sunday that has over 2.5 million hits to it. We got about 2 minutes to walk us through what you said that made everybody's head blow up.
Well, what I said, Steve, was pretty simple. I don't think I'm the first person to have thought this, but clearly was one of the first to have written it, which was the smart play for the Democrats against Trump in this environment. While he is weak and he doesn't have access to his rallies and his big crowds that he needs so much, is for Biden to announce in about 3 or 4 weeks Michelle Obama will be his vice presidential running mate, and for him to be inaugurated on January 20th, and shortly thereafter, and in my fanciful scenario, it's the very next day, he steps down under the 25th Amendment and brings Michelle on as President of the United States. So I've been taking a beating from guys on our side saying, don't give them any ideas, for God's sakes. But clearly it's the smart play for them. She's the strongest. It's a restoration of the Obama dynasty. And look, we're living in Borgia and Medici, Italy right now, with families competing for their time at the trough, and this just made the most sense for them. I think anybody else they pick isn't going to bring anything to the ticket.
But even if you didn't do that, if you ran Biden, Obama, and she did spend 4 years as vice president, then she'd run 2 years, you get 12 years of the Obamas. You get 4 years where Joe's just kind of wandering around. She's Cheney-like prime minister, and then she's got 8 years herself.
Term for more than 2 years. So if she hangs on as vice president for, she could possibly be looking at 12 years of Obama. And of course, she could, I guess, appoint Barack as vice president. The Constitution says no one can run for president more than twice. It doesn't say they can't be president more than twice. So that's the nightmare scenario I decided to let loose on the world while we're in the middle of this Chinese virus.
Okay, we're putting it up on the thing. Hashtag War and Pandemic. We want you to read Mike Walsh's piece on the New York Post. We're linking to it. We want your comments, your observation. Mike, thank you very much for dropping a bomb on us from Ireland today. Mike Walsh, the always provocative former editor of the big government site at Breitbart, just a great American and a great got a book called Last Stand that's coming out next year. We'll talk a lot about. Just a brilliant writer. Mike, thank you very much. So, Jason, what do you think? We got for all the hashtag War Room Pandemic posse. Just embrace the fact you could have 12 years of the Obama minimum, right? 4 years of VP, 8 years on her own, 12 years of Obama.
Man, the Obamas are getting that Netflix money. Netflix has 16 million new signups. They're not going anywhere. They're going to continue to get paid. They're going to hang out at the pool. They're going to be in Hawaii. They're going to go to Ben's Chili Bowl. They're going to be doing all the cool stuff that we don't get to.
Jack got so nervous he put another chew in. He put another thing.
I don't think they're coming back. I mean, if you're the Obamas, wouldn't you rather be out in Martha's Vineyard entertaining the sways?
they were that in the first administration. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. A lot of breaking news. We'll be on it all overnight. See you tomorrow.